Black Dahlia. The murder of Elizabeth Short became one of the most notorious and brutal crimes of the 20th century. We tell you everything that is known to date about this mysterious and sensational case. In January 1947, the news about the brutal murder of a girl named Elizabeth Short broke all over America. People panicked, the police questioned everyone who knew her, and the press conducted its own investigation. However, despite all the efforts made, the investigation of the case of Black Dahlia, as the girl was nicknamed by the newspapers, has not moved from the dead point. After 74 years, this brutal crime still stirs the minds of people, and some of them even hope to identify the perpetrators. Elizabeth Short was born on July 29, 1924, in Boston. The girl's father left his wife and 5 daughters when Elizabeth was 6 years old. He portrayed an accident and fled, making relatives believe in his death. After this event, the girl's mother, in order to feed the family, got a job as an accountant and moved the children to a small apartment in Medford, Massachusetts. In 1942, Elizabeth's mother received some unexpected news. Her ex-husband, who had supposedly died a few years earlier, wrote to her. In the letter, he said that he was alive and settled in California, and that he had made up the story of his death to get rid of the family. It was decided to send Elizabeth to her father, as the climate of the West Coast suited her better. True, the relationship between them did not work out, and soon Elizabeth left her father's house while remaining in Los Angeles. A few months the girl lived in a rented apartment with a few friends and later moved to Santa Barbara. But even this place did not become a home for her. Soon underage Short was arrested for drinking alcohol and sent back to Medford. However, Elizabeth preferred her hometown to Florida, where she went. There she met her first love, Major Matthew Michael Gordon, Jr., of the U.S. Air Force. The young man, soon after meeting, was forced to go on exercises in South Asia, from where he wrote letters to his beloved and even made a marriage proposal. Elizabeth agreed, but the marriage was not destined to happen. In August 1945, Gordon tragically died in an airplane crash. After this incident, the girl again went to conquer Los Angeles. This time Elizabeth came with a specific purpose. She wanted to build a successful movie career in Hollywood. For several months, Short went to numerous auditions, in parallel working as a waitress in one of the city's eateries. But despite the persistence of the aspiring actress, producers were in no hurry to offer her serious roles in the movie. Personal life, Short, as well as her movie career, was not very successful. The girl had a short-term romance with married men, with whom she often went for a few days in the vicinity of the City of Angels, but nothing serious from these meetings did not turn out. On the morning of January 15, 1947, Elizabeth Short was found dead in a vacant lot near South Norton Avenue. Her body was discovered by local resident Betty Bersinger, who was taking a morning walk in the neighborhood with her daughter. When she saw the figure of a woman lying there, she first mistook her for a mannequin. As she got closer, Bersinger was truly horrified by what she saw and rushed to a nearby house to call the police. When the police arrived on the scene, they were shocked. The picture that appeared before them looked much worse than the most violent fantasies of horror movie writers. The body of the unfortunate victim had been cut into 2 parts, which the killer had arranged in a certain pose. The arms were bent at the elbows and placed behind the head, and the legs were spread shoulder-width apart. The genitals had been removed, and instead of a mouth, the face had an ear-to-ear cut called the Chelsea smile. Forensic investigators also examined the crime scene and found a footprint near the body and traces of gasoline that the killer had used to wipe the victim's body. An investigation began, and the first suspect was Robert Manley. Eyewitnesses claimed to have seen Elizabeth in the lobby of the Biltmore Hotel on the day of the murder, but the young man himself swore that he had not seen Short that day. Manley was later released after several lie detector tests, but that didn't speed up the investigation. The city was going crazy, panic was growing by the day, and the police were powerless. Reporters hunting for details of the most high-profile murder since World War II gave the girl the nickname Black Dahlia after the then-popular movie Blue Dahlia. The police arrested people suspected of killing Elizabeth Short by the packs, but it was to no avail. Several times letters of confession, threats, and evidence arrived at the police station, but nothing worthwhile was found. One day, the Herald Express delivered a letter containing newspaper clippings of the murder, as well as personal information about Short. What's more, the envelope had been washed with gasoline, just like Elizabeth's body. There was no doubt the sinister letter was sent by the killer. However, forensic experts were not able to pull any information from the message because all fingerprints and DNA traces were destroyed by gasoline. In total, the Los Angeles police questioned more than 200 men and women suspected in the high-profile Short murder, but the real killer was never found. In the spring of 1947, the investigation was officially closed, but the case was not forgotten. In 1999, former police officer Steve Hodel began a private investigation. In the course of the investigation, he began to suspect his father, George Hodel, in the murder of the girl. The thing is that Steve began to dismantle the archives of his father, a medical doctor, after his death, and found a small album with pictures of a beautiful girl. After comparing the photos with newspaper clippings, the detective concluded that the photos depicted Elizabeth Short. Hodel, Jr., then examined the letters the killer sent to the Herald Express and saw his father's handwriting on them. The facts confirming the guilt of Hodel Sr. became more and more, and the former detective decided to contact his colleagues. It turned out that Hodel Sr. had previously come to the attention of law enforcement agencies in connection with the rape of an underage girl, as well as after the death of his secretary Ruth Spaulding. The police also involved the man in the Elizabeth Short case, but no grounds for his arrest were found. Studying his father's life, Steve gradually learned about new crimes, with which in one way or another George Hodel was connected. Eventually, the former detective came to frightening conclusions. He decided that Hodel Sr. did more than just kill Elizabeth Short. Steve concluded that the famous uncaught Zodiac maniac, who wielded the power in the United States in the 1960s, was none other than his father. This conclusion was made by Steve based on a comparison of letters of the famous maniac and those envelopes that were delivered to newspapers after the murder of Short, as well as after studying the biography of Hodel Sr., who worked all his life as a surgeon, and therefore had the necessary knowledge and skills, as well as characterized as a hot-tempered, vindictive, and cruel man. This version remains unconfirmed, as it is impossible to interrogate Hodel Sr., but Steve intends to continue to search for the truth and collect irrefutable evidence of his father's guilt. Despite the fact that the investigation is still in a deadlock, the image of Elizabeth Short is actively exploited in popular culture. Based on the story of the girl's murder, many movies and TV series have been made, and several books have been written, including the novel The Black Dahlia, by American writer James Ellroy, which was published in 1987, the 2006 film of the same name by film director Brian De Palma, a series of books by Detective Steve Hodel, The Black Dahlia, as well as a reference to the story of Black Dahlia in the first season of the sensational series American Horror Story, where Elizabeth Short was played by actress Mina Suvari.